Welcome into Shot and Vip, a podcast brought to you by Inside Carolina this football season by Johnny T-Shirt. Co-hosting this, I'm Taylor Vippolis, joined by my fellow Carolina football letterman and teammate Jeff Schoettmer. Shot, the first time we're doing one of these this year where we have to talk about a Carolina loss. Inexplicable. Carolina loses 31-27 to Virginia in the South's oldest rivalry. It was UVA's first conference win in over a year. UVA's first win against a Power 5 opponent, their only win this year coming against William and Mary. How do you begin to break down this game and your overall thoughts watching this?
Vip, I'm distraught, man. I was, I didn't want to do this podcast at all, but with the good, you got to take the bad, and there's nowhere to sugarcoat it. The loss was awful, unexplainable, maybe one of the worst losses in UNC history, given the circumstances and potential for this team. And I don't want to, just beat a dead horse and talk about how bad of a loss it was. I kind of want to talk about why it happened and why I thought this team was different than years past. Looking at the first 6 games of the year, this team looked different. And we've talked about it in prior podcasts where we were winning the games we were supposed to comfortably. We were winning Power 5 games by 10 plus points. And why did I think we were different? Because of our veteran leadership that are our best players. You look at Drake, you look at Cedric, you look at Rucker, you look at Huzzy. Those guys have played a lot of football, and they're our best players. So when you have your veteran guys that are your best players, your best leaders, I thought they were changing the culture of this team. And this game was a carbon copy of Georgia Tech from last year. We had a double-digit lead in the third quarter, and we lose to a very, very inferior opponent. It's frustrating because in years past, Coach Brown has been able to say, we don't have an old team. We don't have a mature team. We're playing a lot of young guys, but that's not the case anymore. You look all across the board. We have veterans. We have guys that have played a ton of college football. And then you pair it with, quote unquote, Mac's best staff to date. Like, that's a recipe for ACC championship level play, like we've been talking about the last 6 weeks. But what the product they put on the field Saturday was very frustrating. And look, I truly believe this team could, not make the playoffs, but it's always fun to be in contention and hear UNC be talked about by Kirk Herbstreit and all those ESPN announcers when they talk about the playoffs. But that dream is dead and gone. We do still have some things left on the table, but playoffs that lasted for a week. Playoff talk was 1 week long, and that's now expired. So now we got to scrap and claw and try to go beat a Georgia Tech team on the road where we played 2 years ago and we got our butts handed to us. So we got something to prove.
Yeah, just to paint the scene on how my week has kind of been going. I missed this game, was sick, had to deal with being sick and in bed the entire week. I'm trying to figure out how to move my flights around. Some people noticed on the boards that I didn't have the insider rundown or a post-game video. That's why I didn't, because I had a hard time even moving this week. This is the first time I'm even getting up the entire week. I'm laying down. I'm trying to figure out how to watch this game on the CW. That should have been the first clue that something was up, that this game is on the CW. I'm trying to stream it. The stream's not working. I'm having to get my laptop and go through all these weird sites to try to even watch this game. Finally get settled in. And I think you kind of hit on it perfectly. Why I do think this is the worst loss in school history from what I can remember. Now, there's times where we've been embarrassed more, probably that ECU game. ECU game jumps right to mind, that Georgia Tech game that you had mentioned. But this team, the difference was that this team did feel different. And I think a lot of UNC fans are waking up on Sunday and Monday saying, like, we probably should have seen this coming. I have the stat. This is the 3 of the 4 biggest upsets in UNC football history on record, 3 of the 4 have happened in the last 3 seasons. It's UVA. Carolina was a 23.5-point favorite on Saturday. Last year against Georgia Tech, they were a 21-point favorite. And then 2021 against Florida State, they were a 17.5-point favorite. And you hear that and you're like, yeah, this North Carolina team, it's death taxes and them losing a game that they have no business losing. But this team, like you mentioned, they did feel different. They start 6-0. You have a quarterback that is going to be a top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Everybody on your defense is these senior or experienced leaders: Cedric Gray, Kamon Rucker, Elijah Huzzy. And then offensively, it's like this. You just watched Virginia not be able to have the same offensive success that they had against William and Mary, and they come in here against UNC, a top 10 team, and Carolina just they just looked like a shell of the team that we saw the Syracuse game, the team that we saw the second half of the Miami game. And honestly, it felt like Virginia was trying to give this game away to Carolina, and Carolina just didn't make enough plays to escape and win. And at one point, from a Carolina fan perspective, I was starting to almost cope with the result and be like, if you just win this game, just survive and get to the next week. Coach them up hard during the week, but all that matters is that you did get a win. And the fact that Carolina, we're sitting here talking about losing to a 23.5-point underdog at home against a team like Virginia, who really had no business being in this game. Carolina's up double digits in the second half. How do you even break down what happened? Because it felt like Virginia had a plan and Carolina just went into this game hoping for the best.
So I think, look, UVA had a bye week, prior to the UNC game, and I think they kind of took App State's plan and copied it exactly. Yes, one win UVA had a plan. That's surprising, right? They had a plan to beat us and they schemed us up, right? So, like I said, very similar to App State. They ran the ball. They ran that stretch scheme. They used the QB in the run game. That QB is not just a drop back pocket passer. He's an athlete that can, make plays with his legs, 60 yards that he had plus. And they got him outside the pocket and made some easy throws for him. They hit the tight end in the flat a couple of times, tight end on a wheel route. Like they did some good things. And here's where I have an issue. So with a bye week coming, during the bye week, the UVA coaches obviously are going to find out, what they can exploit on UNC's side, right? So the first touchdown that UVA had, they ran an unbalanced formation into the boundary play and handed the ball to the running back because they knew exactly, if they line up in that formation, what UNC's defense was going to be in. So they had a great scheme there, and we had a one-on-one with the running back and the cornerback, and their guy got the best of us on that play. That's great. They go up 7-0, and they're kudos to them. Give them credit for scheming up a good drive. But we have to make these adjustments as the game goes on, and we're the better team. The longer the game goes, we should, our physicality, our tackling, our toughness, our skills should take over the game, but it just never did. I praised our team so much last week about being physical and they've been the most physical team in every game to date. UVA won that battle by a large margin. Their defensive line whooped our O-line's butt, and their O-line whooped our D-line's butt. Our red zone offense wasn't good. We got in there 3 times and scored 1 touchdown. Our red zone defense wasn't good. We didn't hold them to field goals. We allowed them to score touchdowns in the red zone. We were awful. Our offense was awful on 3rd down and 4th down. I think combined 4 of 16 or something.
4 of 15.
4 of 15.
Yep. 26%.
The hidden yardage in special teams was atrocious. I think they gained, 150, 180 yards more than we did just from special teams yardage. Our defense, our tackling, and our physicality were lacking. And then last week I praised, how good we've been doing with our physicality, especially from the interior D line and the D line and the linebackers. And we got pushed around on the D line, and then that in turn affects the linebackers, and it just was a recipe for disaster.
Yeah, this game, I think disaster is the best word to describe this UNC performance, where Virginia beats them on time of possession 37-23. You have somebody like Omar Hampton, who is a physical runner and somebody that can help you, that has helped Carolina up to this point win the time of possession battles in games. He has 5 second half carries. He did not run the ball the last 8:30 in a game that UNC was only down by 4. It wasn't like they were having to air it out and make up a lot of points with little time. 8:30 in a game left to not get one of the best running backs in the ACC a carry for the remainder of the game is pretty perplexing, especially when you look at his second half carries. They went for 18, 8, 6, 0, and 4. So it wasn't like Virginia all of a sudden found something out in the run game. North Carolina was having a lot of success and one of the things you talked about where it felt like Virginia had a plan, it felt like not only did North Carolina not have a plan, but it felt like they didn't even see what was working to be able to be like, hey, Omar Hampton is having a great game. He's averaging 5.9 yards per carry. You give Omar Hampton the ball 3 times, he'll probably get a first down on his own. And then you have a quarterback like Drake May, and when you do have that balanced attack, and when you're not putting the entire game on Drake May's shoulders, it's a lot more balanced of an attack and more of one that we've seen so far this year with Carolina. And then defensively, this UNC team, it got to the point where North Carolina had a 4th and 12 with like 4 minutes, 4:50-ish left, I would say. And instead of kicking the field goal to cut it to a 1-point game, Mac Brown went for it on 4th and 12. And honestly, you can't really even blame him, because up to that point, the defense really wasn't stopping them. If you give the ball back to Virginia, the success that quarterback was having rushing the ball, where he finishes with 12 carries and 66 yards, almost averaging as much rushing yards per attempt as somebody like Omar Hampton. You can't really blame Mac Brown for not trusting the defense and going for it. The only thing I would kind of critique there is the 3rd and 12 and the 4th and 12. If you knew you were going to go for it on 4th down, I have it now. It was a 3rd and 12 on the 20 with 4:50 left. So Carolina's down 4. If you know it's 4 down territory, but the play calling, the play calling and what Drake was trying to do there, it felt like there was 5 seconds left, and Carolina thought like, we have to score a touchdown, because every throw was going to the end zone instead of trying to shorten it or just playing for the sticks. It didn't feel like they were playing for the sticks. It felt like they were playing to get the entire 20 yards when there's 4:50 left. And up to that point, they were driving the ball with a good deal of success. And I think you look for stats that kind of tell the story. 4:15 on 3rd and 4th downs, UVA winning the time of possession battle 37-23. And then also UVA outrushing Carolina 228-143. A lot to dissect from this game. Not a lot of it good. We heard about that this was a trap game the entire week from Mac Brown, that Carolina couldn't take the cheese. Was there too much talk about that this was a trap game and not just approaching it just like any other game? And where are you kind of putting a majority of the blame on this game when you lose against a team like Virginia as a 23.5-point favorite?
So, the definitely the players are at blame for a lot of it, but I think the majority of it is the coaches. And here's why. I think, everyone knew this was a trap game. We had a shaky first half, but we end the first half and we're up 3 points magically, and we start the third quarter and we go up 10. There's 9 minutes to go in the third quarter. We just get a defensive stop on fourth down. We go down and score. At that point, throw all of the winning pretty, winning ugly out of the window. The coaches need to grab the players' hands and drag them to the finish line and win that game. And here's how they do it. Okay. Drake was off all night. He was missing short throws, intermediate throws, overthrowing. Our receivers were dropping balls. Our offensive line couldn't protect. So, but what were we doing well? We were running the ball with Hampton. So how do our coaches help our team win that game? Well, we find out what we were doing right and we keep doing it. We run the ball with Hampton. We change our game plan. We don't try to have Drake throw it 50 times. I mean, that's very obvious to say. What else could we do? We could, Drake was struggling. We could move the pocket with Drake. We could get Drake involved in the run game. Hell, have Drake run zone read and keep the ball. We could do more quick passes, slants, over the ball routes, screens. We haven't been a good screen team. Run some nakeds, get Drake outside the pocket, moving left and right. Maybe getting more empty formation. Like, there's so many things we could do. How could we help the O-line? We could maybe max protect and bring 2 tight ends in the game and run 2-man routes. Like, there's so many things that we could do offensively to help our team, but we didn't. We just stuck to our normal game plan and acted like everything was normal. And when we were off. So that's the frustrating thing to me is the fact that we had a 10-point lead in the third quarter. We have 1,000 out of 1,000 times we have to win that game. I don't care if we win by 3. It's like we got to get our team across the finish line. And defensively, how do we help our team out? So UVA's quarterback was not a pocket passer per se. He was more athletic. He was like the App State kid. He made some plays with his legs. He was gritty. He was tough. He didn't have a huge arm, but he was pretty accurate intermediate passing. And we have to figure out how to stop a running QB. That's what we got to do. This is a copycat league. They ran multiple plays that App State ran against us and were successful. So if other offensive coordinators are seeing that, then our defensive staff needs to be like, hey, these are the successful plays that teams have run against us. Well, they're probably going to run it in the future. So let's find a plan and fix it. I think the MAC saying, I told the players all week, don't take the cheese. I think that's a little bit of him covering his butt. But, at the end of the day, he can't put the blame on the players. He's got to take the blame. He's talked about how good of a staff that he's assembled. And at the end of the day, like, the coach has got to make some adjustments throughout the game and see that our team is struggling and go back to what we do really well, offensively and defensively. They got to figure out a way to get us across the finish line. And I think more of the blame is offensively is, the play calling and running the ball with Hampton and, finding a way to get Drake out of that little funk he was in. So, I'm going to put majority of the blame on the coaches. So.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you and kind of add to your point, but just to play devil's advocate for a second and give that counter perspective, wide receivers, 6 drops. There's not too many things you could call as a play caller if your wide receivers just can't catch the ball. And an uncharacteristic game from the North Carolina receivers where Nate McCollum has 4 drops. J.J. Jones has 2 drops. This was the first game all season that Carolina's defense had 11 missed tackles, to where maybe the defensive coaches are putting them in the right position, but the players, for whatever reason, are having a hard time bringing people down. And then I think we kind of I've mentioned it throughout this podcast this season, where what could handcuff this team is them in pass protection. And you have a left tackle that really struggles at times. And you saw the last play of the game where he gets beat like a drum and Drake May gets hit as he throws and throws an interception, and it's game over from there. But yeah, I again agree with you that you're up double digits against a team whose only win is William and Mary at home. You have to drag the team over the finish line. You have a back as good as Omar and Hampton running the ball as well as he does. You could shorten the game. You could leave the defense off the field. The defense, it really didn't. Every time UVA came out on the field, I really didn't have any confidence that the defense could get a stop. And I was shocked at the end of the game that the defense did get a stop and force the ball back to Drake May and give Carolina another chance to win the game. But also, they fumbled out of the back of the end zone and kind of gifted
threw an
Carolina.
interception.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's just a game like that's a game where if you're a true top 10 team, like you look at Florida State when they played Boston College, a lot of things didn't go Florida State's way. They find a way to win the game. You could look at almost any team that finishes the year throughout the top 10 and be like, they could have lost this game. They could have lost this game. They probably should have lost this game. But you have the talent and you have the coaches to kind of overcome those mistakes. And I think a lot of North Carolina fans fell for it and wanted to believe that this team was different because in the 6 weeks leading up to this Virginia game, they showed that they were a different team. But then you have a game like this where you resort back and it's like the same Carolina football where the players are tired of hearing about it. The people that really care about Carolina football are tired of hearing about it. When you got the meme accounts and the social media accounts saying like, oh well, it's basketball season again. Like those things stink to hear as a player and somebody who cares this deeply about the Carolina football program. Where does Carolina go from here? How do you reset expectations? And from your experience, when you lose a game like this where you really had no business losing, how do you not let this game beat you twice?
So this is going to sound bad, but I think fans and media take losing harder than the players. So the players are these young 18 to 21-year-old kids. They have, they forget things quicker than fans do because fans, they go to work and they just think about the game all week. But the players, they got to go right back to work. They got to flip the page and go right to the next game. And I firmly believe, I think this was an anomaly. I still believe our team is going to play for the ACC championship. I truly believe that. We have shown too much flashes of greatness this year to just throw it all out the door. Obviously we're playing a Georgia Tech team who I'm sure we're 10 plus point favorites against. Obviously we haven't had a good track record.
11.5 right now.
11.5. Yeah. I mean, look, we are a very talented team. We played awful and everything that went wrong could. Look, I'm not sugarcoating this loss, and it was awful, but I truly believe, flashes of our third quarter in Miami, if we can find a way to tap into that and play like that the majority of the time, like we will still go to the ACC championship. Do I think we can beat Florida State? I think if we played them 10 times, I think we could beat them too. So hopefully, we win, that we play like we should on the night that we play them. But you have to turn the page. You have to, obviously there's a lot of learning that we have to do from this, but I think it hopefully readjust our coach's mind because, of how they call the game offensively and defensively. We obviously have some issues with injuries on the O-line. We obviously have issues at punter. Our receiver room isn't as deep as we thought. We're not getting a lot of production out of anyone besides Tez right now. I think Nate will have a bounce back game. I think that's not who he's shown to be. I think we'll have to rely on Hampton a lot more. But look, I was obviously like very down about this game, but I am fully expecting our guys to turn the page and put this one behind us because, we're led by Drake at the helm, and he is a competitor through and through. And, in anything that he's done in his life, I don't think he's been held down long. I think he's going to bounce back and rise to the occasion and kind of grab this team, him and Sed and Ruck, and have some hard conversations with everybody and, get the ship righted.
Yeah, when you look at Carolina's schedule for the remainder of the season, a lot of people were just looking ahead to that Duke UNC game and then UNC on the road at Clemson and then UNC finishing the year on the road at NC State. And it did feel like they had three cupcakes to get themselves there, and you get to 9-0 and you're in the college football playoff talk. Well, you mentioned it at the start. Those conversations go out the window pretty quickly. And I think you have like the glass half full approach and the glass half empty approach, where it's like, yes, Carolina can get to the ACC championship, and they're actually outside of FSU, they're the favorite to get there. I think I saw like 35% chance to
Yep.
get to the ACC championship. But the glass half empty approach is like when you're a team that allows games like you had on Saturday, it's hard to imagine them being able to be the ones that run the table. And you look at the ACC standings, FSU is 5-0, Louisville's 3-1, UNC's 3-1, Duke's 2-1, Virginia Tech is 2-1. That would be the most ACC thing. Virginia Tech getting backing their way into the ACC.
That's not going to happen.
Backing their way into the ACC championship. But yeah, if you're Carolina, I don't know the math of the tiebreakers, but you would have to imagine if they win out, they're almost in control of their own destiny. I guess there's a way where they could tie with Louisville, I guess, and Louisville would get the tiebreaker. But if you're Carolina and you're telling me you get to the end of the season with one conference loss, and that one conference loss is to Virginia, I think you sign up for that and hope you get to the ACC championship. You mentioned the punting, and that was a point I forgot to make. Carolina is dead last in the ACC in average yards per punt. Duke is first for context, 47.4. Carolina is dead last with 35 yards per punt. They had a 16-yard punt yesterday. You're just gifting when you're backed up and then you have a 16-yard punt. You're better off just keeping Drake May out on the field most of the time. And I know it's a situation where they lost Ben Kiernan for the year to a lower body injury, but you got a lot of people on campus, a lot of frat kids. A lot of frat kids probably were kickers and punters. It might be time. It might be time to hold an open tryout and see if you got something else on campus for punting, because the punting is the hidden yards. Like you're setting yourself so far behind when you're losing the field position battle, as bad as Carolina lost against UVA.
We have a rugby team on campus, don't we? Intramural rugby or club rugby.
Try them, please.
We need something.
I'm watching Carolina punt, and it just does it. Nothing about the operations look good when you've had 2 punts blocked and then you have 16-yard punts. Something is not right there, and really special teams as a whole for Carolina has been pretty down this year, outside of the one punt return Elijah Huzzy had. And it's not as talked about when your offense doesn't do as well, or when your defense doesn't do as well. It might not stick out to people that really don't know football. But special teams is a huge phase in football. And when you're losing 186 yards in that hidden yardage, you're setting yourself up for failure, especially when you compound that with no success on 3rd and 4th downs, when you compound that with you can't stop the other team, and for some reason you stop running the ball. But we'll see how Carolina bounces back, and hopefully this game doesn't beat them twice. But that'll take us.
What's your prediction? What's your prediction for the Heels going forward? Do you think we right the ship? Do you think this is carbon copy of last year, where we start losing a few games, lose the team? What's
right the ship as in bouncing back immediately against Georgia Tech? I think they're gonna blow Georgia Tech out. I know Atlanta's been kind of like a house of horrors for Carolina, and it is right around Halloween, and you get word about anytime you have a trip to Atlanta. I think Carolina bounces back in a big way this weekend against Georgia Tech, and then Campbell, they cruise. I just don't see Carolina winning both of Duke and Clemson. I think there's a split there, and I don't know where the split comes from. Part of it is I saw the ACC championship last year where my mind is telling me that there is a pretty big gap between Carolina and Clemson. And then with a team like Duke, it's hard to not be impressed with what Elko has done at Duke in that quick of a turnaround. And when college football and football in general is just such a copycat sport, knowing if Riley Leonard is healthy going into that game, I think Elko has the coaching staff to kind of expose this Carolina defense and turn a game into a shootout, which is not the way that Carolina probably wants to play this year. I don't think I want to say I don't think State's competition, but it's also a game where you kind of throw out the records with the mindset of both those teams and the recent history with those two teams. But yeah, I think Carolina still has one more loss in them this season.
Wait, so if we go 10-2 and Louisville goes 10-2, we're still going to the ACC championship. Is that right? I should know this.
I don't know what the tiebreaker is, to be honest. Okay. That's like Greg Barnes territory.
Because I see Louisville. I looked at their schedule today. I see them losing to Miami.
Yeah, and then
and if you think we got one more loss in us, then that puts us both at 10-2, and
that would
stay likely 12.
Oh yeah. Well, I was going to say Miami would only have 2 conference losses, but Miami still has to play FSU. Really, anybody who has to play FSU, you're just writing them down for a loss there. Yeah, I think Carolina fans have to go into every week rooting against Louisville. Really, it seems like Louisville's the only team where you should go into every week rooting against them, because if you're Carolina, you can kind of control your own destiny playing Duke and already having a win against Miami. But like that Louisville Miami is a complete toss up, and even this weekend, Duke at Louisville is a game that Carolina fans should probably have circled. But speaking of games this weekend, that'll take us into our pick of the weekend, presented by our friends at Congruity. North Carolina-based national coverage, local presence, personal support straight from the Tar Heel State is what Congruity provides to consumers. They are empowering small and mid-sized business owners with HR and payroll outsourcing, enabling you to grow your business while they take care of your greatest assets, your people. And they're doing it with top-of-the-line technology and services for every stage of your business's growth with a state-of-the-art online platform. They are obsessed with customer service. They become part of your team, and they do it with providing the heavy lifting and providing essential admin support with a single point of contact and support available on demand with services that are tailor-made, transforming your organization. Congruity has helped hundreds of businesses improve and enhance their day-to-day lives, level up your HR capabilities, save money, and unlock game-changing growth. Visit congruityhr.com/Tar Heels to learn more about Congruity. Fill out a quick form to be connected to their consultants, and they'll give Inside Carolina listeners and viewers a payroll and HR assessment for free. That's congruityhr.com/Tar Heels. Shot. We're dead even right now on our pick of the weekend. You picked Ole Miss. Ole Miss covers on the road at Auburn. They win by 7. I think the spread was like 5.5,
5 or 6.
Yeah, whatever it was, they cover with a great deal of ease. I took Penn State. I'm kind of embarrassed now that looking back on it, I'm embarrassed that I thought Drew Aller could have been good.
That offense was atrocious. They were bad.
I don't know.
He was bad. The play calling was bad. It was the most predictable stuff I've ever seen.
I went into the game saying, like, hey, this is going to be 2 great defenses. And for the most part, it was 2 great defenses. But I didn't think Penn State's offense would look as bad as they did. And I love James Franklin coming out after the game, immediately getting ahead of the story and being like, I think you guys just watched 2 of the best teams in the country.
Smart man.
It was a smart move on his part. I don't think Penn State is one of the best teams in the country. Ohio State has a case for that. Where are you going this week? We're both 2-1. If some people are saying, hey, 3-1, you're doing
that's in
good.
The plus money, yeah.
If you're 3-1 picking spreads,
that's plus money. That's all we're looking for. My pick of the week. My pick of the week. So my pick of the week is brought to you by obviously our friends at Congruity, but I'm going to give a free shout out to Lucha Tigre. It's my favorite restaurant in Chapel Hill. Shout out Qua. He's the owner. If you guys haven't been to Lucha Tigre, it's on Martin Luther King, before the police station. Best Asian fusion in town. Everyone, stop by and get your General Tso's, your empanadas, your spicy chicken and noodles, whatever you want, they got it. But my pick of the week is Florida plus 14.5 against Georgia. So obviously UGA, Florida, biggest cocktail party in the world in Jacksonville. I went and saw Florida live this year, and I saw them beat Tennessee at the Swamp. Obviously, the home field advantage at that game had a lot to do with it, but Florida's got some talent. I think they're going to shorten the game and, make it an ugly one. Brock Bowers is out for Georgia. He's their best player. So I think Florida's got some elite defenders, and I think they have enough guys in the trenches to keep this thing tight. I think they lose the game, but I think they cover 14.5 for me. That's a lot of points.
Especially without Brock Bowers. I think that's the key there with how important he is for the Georgia offense. For me, I'm going to a team. They were once left for dead. There's a slight pulse in Blacksburg, Virginia. It's faint. It's very faint.
Who do they play?
I'm going Virginia Tech -3 at home this Thursday against Syracuse. I was not really impressed with Syracuse. They're a team that starts every year out hot. Virginia Tech made the switch. Grant Wells was their quarterback, the Marshall transfer, and Kyron Drones is their new quarterback, and they have looked a lot better under him. I'm taking Virginia Tech -3 only because it's a Thursday night game at Lane Stadium. You get Enter Sandman, one of the best atmospheres in all of college football, no matter how Virginia Tech is. And that was one of the lines that stuck out to me, where you can kind of see how each team is trending going into a game. And I'm going to back the Hokies -3. That offense at times it's going to be a hold your nose bet, where it's like, oh, this offense could look very bad at times, but I'm just hoping Enter Sandman, and I could ride Enter Sandman and Metallica to 3-1. But shot, that will do it for this episode. Carolina back in action. It's a 8 p.m. kickoff in Atlanta. Channel. Let me look at the channel. Hopefully it's not on the CW. The CW. I hope Carolina has never played on this, dude. So Carolina kicks off at 6:30, right? I download the CW app. I click live, and I'm on the app. It's like 6:35. I'm seeing tweets like Carolina is kicking off or Carolina's receiving the ball, and I'm like, whoa, I'm still stuck on this Live Golf loading screen, like live watch now. And then I'm just realized, like, hey, the CW, whatever this app is, doesn't have the game.
I thought they were showing like reruns of One Tree Hill or some
Smallville,
some Halloween movie.
Yeah, but thankfully not on the CW. It's back on the ACC network. The ACC network, I can complain about that, but when you're on the CW, it's you don't know what you got until it's gone with the ACC network. So I'll probably never complain about the ACC network ever again. Carolina back in action Saturday, 8 p.m. ACC network. Shotman, appreciate the time as always, and appreciate everybody watching and listening.
Appreciate it, Vipp. Hopefully next week we have a much happier podcast, and we're back on the bandwagon of ACC champs, baby. So everyone have a good week. Thanks for listening.